She was called unsinkable, a floating palace of steel and dreams. But before the iceberg, before the legend, Titanic stared down disaster more than once. A near collision in the harbor, delays, omens, and a chain of almost that could have rewritten history. In the shadows of her maiden voyage, fate blinked, and the world nearly lost Titanic before her story truly began. This is the saga of the ship that almost sank. Again. To understand Titanic's journey, we step into the shipyards of Belfast, a world of steel, sweat, and ambition. Titanic and her sister Olympic were giants born side by side, but Olympic's troubles cast a long shadow. In September 1911, Olympic collided with HMS Hawke, tearing open her hull. Repairs swallowed resources, parts, and precious time. Titanic's own launch was delayed, her fate already tangled with her sister's misfortunes. As Olympic limped back for more repairs in early 1912, Titanic's maiden voyage was pushed from March to April. The schedule tightened, the pressure mounted. Every day lost was a day closer to disaster or a day stolen from it. But the challenges didn't stop there. Titanic's construction was rushed to meet deadlines and corners were cut. Some rivets were found to be brittle and the steel used was less resilient in cold temperatures than later standards would demand. These hidden flaws would later prove fatal. Meanwhile, the human element was just as critical in keeping ships safe. First Officer William Murdoch, destined to be at Titanic's helm, had already faced near catastrophe at sea. Years earlier on the SS Arabic, Murdoch's quick thinking averted a collision. Proof that on the ocean, survival is measured in seconds and instinct. April 10, 1912. Southampton. The Titanic, gleaming and immense, loomed over the docks, a marvel ready to make history. Passengers gathered, porters hustled, and the city buzzed with anticipation. But as Titanic eased from her berth, guided by tugboats into the narrow river test, her sheer size unleashed a hidden danger. Nearby, the SS City of New York and the Oceanic rested at anchor. Titanic's massive propellers stirred the water, creating a suction so strong it snapped the New York's mooring lines. Suddenly, the smaller liner was yanked stern first toward Titanic. Steel against steel, disaster in slow motion. Panic rippled through the crowd. The gap closed, 4 feet, then 2. Captain Smith ordered engines reversed. Tugboats strained. At the last instant, the Vulcan tug pulled the New York clear. An hour's delay, a shaken crew, and a voyage that could have ended before it began. Some whispered it was an omen, a warning the world ignored. This near miss was not the only close call in port. Titanic's massive size also challenged the harbor's infrastructure. Dock workers struggled with the ship's enormous gangways, and the harbor pilots had to navigate tight turns with precision. The pressure to launch on schedule despite these challenges added tension to the atmosphere. 2 nights later, the North Atlantic was silent and cold. At 11:40 p.m., lookouts Frederick Fleet and Reginald Lee spotted a ghostly shape, an iceberg dead ahead. Murdoch, now on the bridge, ordered hard a starboard and engines full astern. Titanic, a behemoth at 22 knots, began to turn, but not fast enough. Instead of a head-on crash, Titanic's starboard side scraped along the iceberg, tearing open her hull for 300 feet. 5 watertight compartments breached. Shipbuilder Thomas Andrews, walking the corridors, knew the truth. Titanic was doomed. Irony lingered in the icy air. Some experts believe a direct hit might have kept her afloat, damaging fewer compartments. The choice to swerve, a reflex to avoid disaster, sealed her fate. In the end, it was not just the iceberg, but the chain of decisions and chances that doomed the great ship. The night was clear, the sea calm, a deceptive silence. The iceberg field was known, but warnings were either missed or ignored. The wireless operators were overwhelmed with passenger messages, and the ship maintained high speed despite iceberg alerts. These decisions, made in the heat of routine, would prove catastrophic. Titanic was a marvel of engineering, but not of emergency planning. Though the ship carried over 2,200 people, it had lifeboats for just 1,178, barely half. And shockingly, this wasn't a mistake. Under the law at the time, ships were only required to carry 16 lifeboats, no matter their size. Titanic carried 20, technically above regulations. But in reality, not even close to enough. Why so few? Lifeboats were seen as practical eyesores, taking up space on decks designed for strolling and luxury. And more importantly, the belief was Titanic couldn't sink. In the rare chance of emergency, it was assumed nearby ships would assist, and lifeboats would ferry passengers back and forth. But the ocean doesn't wait. What's worse, on April 14th, the day she hit the iceberg, Titanic canceled her scheduled lifeboat drill. That meant most passengers had no idea where to go, and many crew members didn't know their boat stations. When the time came, confusion ruled. Some lifeboats were lowered with barely a dozen people aboard. Boats built for over 60. Boat 1, a prime example, carried just 12 passengers, including a few wealthy men and crew, not women or children. There was no public address system, no sirens. Only stewards knocking on cabin doors, telling people, some calmly, some urgently, to put on life jackets and head to the deck. And even as the ship listed and panic grew, many still believed Titanic couldn't possibly sink. In total, over 470 seats in lifeboats went unused. Meanwhile, over 1,500 people died, most from hypothermia in the freezing North Atlantic. As Titanic fought for life, another ship drifted nearby, the SS Californian. Stopped in the ice field, her wireless operator had tried to warn Titanic, but was rebuffed and went to bed. Later, the Californian's crew saw rockets in the night, white flares arching over the horizon. They reported them, but Captain Lord did not wake his operator or order the engines started. They watched as the distant ship's lights flickered and vanished. Only at dawn did the Californian learn the truth. Titanic had sunk, and hundreds had perished within sight of rescue. A ship so close, a call unanswered. The difference between life and death measured not in miles, but in minutes and choices. The Californian's failure sparked outrage and investigations. Captain Lord's reputation suffered, and the tragedy highlighted the need for 24-hour wireless watch, a rule that would become standard after Titanic's sinking. After the impact, Titanic did not sink at once. Water crept in, silent and relentless. For passengers in the grand salons, the danger seemed distant. The band played, lights glowed, and the sea was eerily calm. Thomas Andrews told Captain Smith the ship had less than 2 hours, but the warning spread slowly. There was no public address system, just stewards knocking on doors, urging people to dress and come on deck. The first lifeboats left half empty. Many clung to the illusion of safety, unwilling to leave the world's greatest ship for a tiny boat on a black, freezing ocean. Only when the bow plunged and the decks steepened did panic erupt. The calm that bought time also cost lives, a cruel twist in the final hours of Titanic. Amid the chaos, acts of heroism and tragedy unfolded. The band played on. Lifeboats were lowered with women and children first, and strangers comforted one another in the dark. The ship's final moments were a testament to human courage and frailty. Titanic's story is not just one of tragedy, but of near misses and fate's fickle hand. She almost didn't sail, almost crashed in port, almost survived the iceberg, almost called for help in time. Every chapter is a testament to the razor's edge between disaster and deliverance. In the end, Titanic was a ship haunted by almosts, a legend born not just from what happened, but from what so nearly didn't. If these hidden moments gripped you, share which almost you think changed history most. Subscribe and join us for more untold stories where fate hangs by a thread.